A rebellion among the Russian elites. Z-bloggers have suddenly declared Putin a criminal.
It is precisely because Putin is afraid to surround himself with worthy rivals, with people who could compete with him, that he will lose power. And this will most likely happen this year.
The Kremlin has been left without a master. Is Putin really afraid of repeating the fate of Iran's leadership? With each passing day, things are getting worse and worse. Kadyrov made a public appearance, but just barely. A chemical plant, an airfield, and a military base building have come under attack. Drones have kindly paid a visit to Russia. The US reports a new missile threat, with America itself in the crosshairs.
Intelligence assesses that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and Pakistan are studying and developing a wide range of new, advanced, or conventional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional warheads.
A global blackout. Egypt is introducing power outages. A new energy crisis. Iran has dealt a devastating blow.
Iran has bombed the world's largest LNG plant in Qatar. A 77 million ton terminal is on fire. Qatar promises to respond.
Hello friends, you are watching the topic of the day on the Ukraine Today YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us. Please don't forget to like our videos if you enjoy what our team is doing. As you may have already gathered from the short announcement, we definitely have things to discuss today, and we'll do that together with Musa, Lomer, and you. Joining us is public figure and North Caucasus affairs analyst Musa. Hello, I'm very glad to see you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
How is Asia? Absolutely. Today we're going to talk in great detail because once again, social media is burying Kadyrov, yet again so many times now that we've lost count. Nevertheless, we do need to pay attention to this information. But let's start with another illness. What happened to the blogger Remesloga? Yes, it's all over social media and the internet users. It's been going on for the second day in a row now. Let me remind you, we're talking about a pro-Kremlin, Kremlin-loyal blogger who faithfully served his patrons. He wrote, churned out anonymous reports and open complaints, including against Navalny, did all the dirty work online, and wrote denunciations. And then suddenly he had an epiphany. He saw the light and started calling Putin not a war criminal, but definitely an illegitimate president. He was practically calling for his arrest and for new presidential elections in the Russian Federation. And then he went after the most sacred thing there is, the very thing that got Gherkin in trouble back in the day when he criticized Putin. He brought up Alina Kabaeva and spoke unfavorably about her as well. And that is already very dangerous, maybe even more dangerous than criticizing Putin himself. Today, information emerged that he was placed in a psychiatric hospital. It seems to me, at least, that there is very little information about this and few sources confirming it. So what do you think? Let's start with the main point. What kind of special operation is this? Is this his personal initiative? Or is it an FSB special operation, for example? Or could this indicate that the Kremlin's factions are plotting to remove Putin?
In my opinion, we need to look at this situation from another angle, from the perspective of patriots who are dissatisfied with the actions of both Putin himself and the Kremlin for a number of reasons. For example, regarding Ukraine or something like that, what I want to say is this. Even if Vladimir Putin announces a ceasefire or ends the war or something very much along those same lines, certain individuals like this particular Z-blogger will inevitably appear on the scene who are going to demand the persistent continuation of this aggression, the application of constant unrelenting pressure, and insist that the Russian Federation must keep moving forward in this specific direction so that it continues to carry out this kind of work even further into the future.
All right. How else can you explain it? Well, it's really hard to believe that one person wants to challenge the system. Yes, especially the very system that fed him from its own hand. Who could be behind him? After all,
Without
a good cover, things like this don't happen. Well, if...
To put it briefly, a patriot. How should I put this? In short, for a patriot, the toughness shown by his idol, by his statesman, is not enough. A patriot demands that things be even tougher, even stronger. All of this was being promoted. That is, in this way, the Russian Federation is sinking even deeper into darkness.
Well, you could probably call this stubbornness from the patriots.
Well, yes. There will be even more of them. The deeper the Russian Federation gets involved in the war in Ukraine, the more patriots will emerge. They are not demanding that something good appears from Putin. They demand that Putin does not back down from the original task, does not back down from the original goal. That's what they demand. That's why these patriots are appearing who they serve the Russian regime faithfully and loyally. And then at some point, like Prigozhin, for example, they snap and rebel against the Kremlin. The same thing happened with this blogger.
What the system's reaction will be is still unknown, as there is only limited information so far. Again, I should clarify that it's not entirely proven yet. Yes, that he is already in a psychiatric hospital in St. Petersburg. And there is information that this is one of the most terrifying psychiatric hospitals in the Russian Federation, because during the Soviet era, methods of punitive psychiatry were actively developed and practiced there. We all know very well how dangerous it is.
Well, if they can't bring the patient back, then most likely we will see or hear news that this person has passed away. Just quietly, peacefully, somewhere he simply didn't wake up. If they can't bring him back into the system, then without a doubt, this person will end up dead.
But will this shut up those rabid patriots who call themselves Z-war correspondents, Z-bloggers like Kadyrov, for example, who is also posting daily now? But mostly, of course, she criticizes, saying that combat operations need to be intensified and that there should be no talk of peace negotiations. She is still a bit afraid to bite at Putin personally.
No, it won't. Absolutely not. No, unfortunately, it won't. As I said, the Russian Federation, partly because of these harmful bloggers, will continue to sink deeper into darkness. There will be no civilized order, no adequacy from the Russian Federation. These people neither want to see it nor demand it. On the contrary, they want the Russian Federation to go even further, to expose itself even more, thank you, to show its Russism to the world.
But do you think this is just an ideological motive in their minds? Or have they learned to profit from this war and don't want to lose their feeding trough?
I believe that in this case, Russian reality has been completely exposed. From the moment it renounced European values, international law, and the many connections that once served to restrain it. All of this has exposed these Z-bloggers as well. Moreover, I am more than certain that if Putin announces a truce and says that's it, the war is over, then such unrest will begin within Russian society that they will demand the removal of the liar, in this case, Putin, and for someone to take his place who will continue what he started. That vile activity that Vladimir Putin began. He started back in 2014 and continued in 2022.
I understand what you mean, but now we're slowly moving toward a deep philosophical question. Is Putin the only one to blame for starting this war? Or is it society? Or was he fulfilling the interests and needs of his own people? Let's not delve into the Russian people or Azov right now. Let's instead talk about Putin's fear, about what state he is in at the moment. Because leading world publications have also noted that, according to Putin's schedule, public events in the Kremlin have disappeared. And there are persistent, though unverified, rumors that he is simply afraid to go there now. So, after the assassination of Ali Khamenei, in your opinion, how much have the events in the Middle East affected the Russian dictator? Is it true that the fact that Israel was monitoring city surveillance cameras and tracking the movement of the motorcade has intensified Putin's fears, making him even more afraid for his life?
I don't think that the events currently unfolding in the Middle East have caused any particular anxiety for Vladimir Putin. On the contrary, Vladimir Putin has perked up and even started to feel better when Trump failed regarding Iran. If Trump had succeeded with Iran, then yes, Putin would have really started to worry. And regarding this information that Israel was monitoring through cameras, that is, through surveillance cameras, watching Putin, this is most likely a way of saying, we are watching everything, we control everything, and there's no need to say anything unnecessary about Israel. Today, Israel is like an exposed nerve, reacting very sharply to everything that concerns Israel today. And this shows that Israel is nervous. Because today, the situation in the Middle East is unfolding not in favor of Israel and not in favor of the United States.
By the way, there still hasn't been any reaction to the situation in the Middle East from our frequent topic of discussion with you, Ramzan Kadyrov. And we understand perfectly well that right now his political situation is quite ambiguous. He doesn't know whether to act beautiful or clever in this case. To join in, he remains silent about the escalation of the conflict in Iran. He needs to make a choice. The Kadyrov clan has an alliance with Putin's Russia. The countries of the Persian Gulf are Kadyrov's wallet. So what should he do now? Which way should he turn?
Regarding Kadyrov and the Middle East, these are two things that can't be connected. Kadyrov, Ramzan, has never felt at ease there. Ramzan Kadyrov used to come to the countries of the Persian Gulf in order to bring his own money and the money of Russian officials to bring it in and invest it in the economy, the Persian Gulf countries. But absolutely everything else, anything outside of that, simply never concerned or troubled Ramzan Kadyrov. And he was never particularly interested or invested in it. But as soon as the countries
Obey.
out of fear, Ramzan Kadyrov is driven by animal fear. He operates on an instinctive level, this person. He doesn't have critical thinking. He can't analyze or anything like that. Unfortunately, he never learned how, even with all the resources he has. In these 20 years, he hasn't been able to acquire them. These qualities, at least at the level of a district official, unfortunately. On the instinctive level, it's about sanctions. It's about being pursued by the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine, for example, where a criminal case was opened not only against Ramzan Kadyrov, but also against Ramzan Kadyrov's children, who came, shot, and led prisoners, and things like that. All of this was done to please Vladimir Putin. Well, as a result, it turned out that Ramzan Kadyrov is afraid, and his children are afraid to visit the Arab world. Because there are sanctions there, because everything is under the control of the United States. And today, the United States is on Ukraine's side.
There's another very interesting point regarding Chechnya and the relationship between Grozny and Moscow. It's the oil production of the Chechen Republic, right? During Soviet times, this sector was one of the main sources of economic support for the region. Now, the Russian Federation has taken over oil production, but Ramzan Kadyrov did not give up. Lately, he has been looking for investors, including Chinese ones. Now we see that oil prices are breaking records. And do you think this could once again become a bone of contention between Grozny and Moscow?
Moscow regarding oil, Chechen oil. Moscow resolved this issue back when Ahmad Kadyrov was in charge, that is Ramzan Kadyrov's father. It was back when Ahmad Kadyrov first began hinting at the idea of creating a Chechen Mecca. Just a few short months after those remarks, this man found himself at the Dynamo Stadium. He was standing directly over the exact spot where a powerful explosive device had been secretly planted, and in a sudden blast, Ahmad Kadyrov was blown up. From that tragic moment onward, not one single pro-Russian Chechen official has ever dared to even mention the subject of Chechen oil again. Even throughout the periods of the most intense and brutal fighting, Chechen oil continued to be pumped out and controlled by the powerful Russian elite. Officials were extracting Chechen oil without stopping for a single day. That's why Chechen oil does not belong to the Chechens today, and even less so to Ramzan Kadyrov. He wouldn't even dare look in the direction of that Chechen oil because he knows what happened to his father.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
A new rumor. As usual, through internet resources, even opposition Chechen channels are reporting that the ruler of Chechnya is once again in very bad shape, sick again, terminally ill. How do you feel about this information now? How seriously do you take it? Or can this be seen as an information psychological operation in preparation for some events?
If I didn't know about the crimes of Ramzan Kadyrov, in which he personally took part, where he killed people in horrific torture, this shot where he takes part in all these executions, personally kills, tortures, and so on, illustrates this very well. Looking at the latest footage where Ramzan Kadyrov walks around like a zombie, I would actually feel sorry for him as a person. I would pity him. But knowing what a terrible person he was and how much Chechen blood he shed, I don't feel a single ounce of pity. No regret, not a bit of bitterness about the situation Kadyrov is in. He disappeared for several weeks. During this period, he was supposed to undergo some kind of medical examination, and as soon as he was able to at least stand and moves around on his own, this very moment, he inspects, looks at some new construction sites, but we can see what condition he is in. The cameras still can't fake everything. The reality, the true state of Ramzan Kadyrov.
Well, while Kadyrov Sr. has disappeared, his son, on the other hand, he has appeared, yes, and he's trying to show that he is supposedly in perfect shape. But you know what stands out? He moves around the city in an armored car with 10-centimeter thick windows. And you just want to be sarcastic and ask, who exactly is he expecting a threat from if everyone is supposedly so loyal to the Russian administration and this very Adam Kadyrov heads the security forces in Chechnya? And
to add another question, given that international terrorism has been defeated in Chechnya, defeated specifically in Chechnya.
Several times, in fact.
Yes, exactly. Every terrorist, you could say. The international terrorist has been eliminated specifically over the course of, you would think after all that, why are armored vehicles, bulletproof vests, and security even necessary? And even more so, why does Majorek need security and armored vehicles when he is nothing after Ramzan Kadyrov ceases to be? That is, his father will no longer be the head of the republic. This is, here probably we need more, so that Russians pay attention to this. Russians, your taxes, with your taxes, armored vehicles are bought. These bulletproof vests are paid for with your taxes. The security detail. This is where your money goes, besides the war in Ukraine. Here's another thing. These spoiled kids are spending your money.
The 10-centimeter thick car windows can be explained by the fact that the accident he was in a few months ago was not an accident. At that time, Olga Kurnosova said that, according to her information, Adam Kadyrov's car was shot at with a grenade launcher.
That's not true. That's not true. No, that's something made up. No one cares about this guy. I repeat once again, yes, he annoys everyone. Yes, he's a nuisance on the roads. There are no people in Chechnya who are inclined to do something in this way regarding the son of Ramzan Kadyrov.
Yes, it's clear that nobody needs him, but to spite Ramzan Kadyrov by killing his son, well, you don't even have to guess. There would be a line of people willing to do it.
I don't see the logic in that. I don't see the logic in that. It would make more sense to shoot at Ramzan Kadyrov's car because he really is a war criminal. And in order to spite Ramzan Kadyrov, and shooting his son is some kind of political game that simply doesn't exist in the territory of the Chechen Republic.
All right, but politically at least, it seems that opposition Chechen organizations are already starting to target him again. There are reports that the Kremlin has already made a decision regarding the replacement of Ramzan Kadyrov. And they are betting on Daudov, the former speaker of the Chechen parliament. It is he who is allegedly being considered as the key figure. What do you know about this? And if this information is confirmed, does this transition from Kadyrov to Daudov imply the elimination of Kadyrov, or will he be able to step down from power if he sees that all the cards are on the table?
When examining the personality of Magomed Daudov, it is evident that he is not an independent figure in his own right. He is a person who essentially amounts to nothing when removed from the context of the Kadyrov system. He is nobody, absolutely zero, without the Kadyrov system. Because if you look at his speeches, first he launches into tirades about the elder Kadyrov, that is Ramzan Kadyrov's father. Then he goes on tirades about the son, and only after that does he start talking about the actual matter. And he finishes in exactly the same way. He praises Ahmad Kadyrov, then thanks the son, meaning Ramzan Kadyrov, and then concludes. This shows that this person has no sense of self. I know what he is involved in. Regarding Daudov, by portraying him in this light, the MySo channel, I'm aware, it's an attempt to have him physically eliminated, as long as Ramzan Kadyrov holds power, to physically eliminate Daudov. Actions of this kind have been taken many times, and they have yielded results. But the Russian opposition has adopted this approach, And referring to the Miso channel, they say that everything has been decided by the Kremlin. Daudov is now officially confirmed, and something along those lines. But that's not the case. The Kremlin does not need a butcher, an executive butcher, who has no personal sense of self. Daudov is a war criminal. Daudov has participated in many war crimes on the territory of the Chechen Republic and personally against Chechens. In my opinion, the Russian Federation, yes, is now fully focused on wiping out everything connected to the period of the 2000s and 2010s and to launch. This is the kind of new project, a new Chechnya, that will ultimately become self-sufficient. In other words, it will no longer be a subsidized region, but will provide for itself, pay its own pensions, benefits, and so on.
But is the region ready for this, given how corrupt it has become over all these years, all these decades under the Kadyrov clans? Won't there be a struggle for division? A fight for power, yes, some kind of blood feuds, clan wars, and so on?
All of this
is present. No one will give up easy money that quickly.
No one will refuse it. All of this would take place if the so-called clans were independent. But there's only one representative who pays. He pays all of them. And as soon as he cuts off funding to one company, as soon as he, roughly speaking, stops financing them or closes the door, let's say the Kremlin no longer needs, for example, Doludov or Delimkhanov, that's it. Delimkhanov has no protection at all. He must either go and bow to Ramzan Kadyrov or to the new head of the republic, or wait for his fate, like, for example, Sulim Yamadayev, the brothers, Sulim, the Yamadayev brothers. I believe that the Yamadayevs had so much power that Ramzan Kadyrov never had and never will have. Even they lost this power as soon as the Kremlin closed its doors, as soon as the Kremlin stopped paying them. After that, they were simply stripped of their protection. And so that the heroes of Russia, Suleim Madaev and Ruslan Madaev, wouldn't say too much, they gave Ramzan Kadyrov the opportunity to simply physically eliminate these two brothers. The rest fell silent on their own. And what was left of Suleim Madaev's gang was either physically eliminated or simply switched over to Kadyrov's side. And today they faithfully serve Ramzan Kadyrov. Well,
what can you say about that? You know, it's hard to predict the lifespan of the Kremlin's political puppets, but they all end up the same way. The Kadyrov clan and its leader will end up exactly the same way. Thank you so much, Musa, for finding the time to talk with us. Musa Lomayev, public figure and analyst on North Caucasus issues, was our guest today. Don't forget to like this episode. This way, we can increase our audience. Musa, until next time, thank you.
Thank you.